Hello and welcome to Odessa. This is Dresden's Tale, episode 14. This is the little adventure where we follow Dresden Fane, the warlock, the dwarven adventurer, the warrior, traveling most recently through the desert plain of Odessa, where he has been in and out of trouble, where he's complained a lot about the heat, and where he is still at this very moment in residence doing the job of a warrior of the Stone Clan. Now, Dresden is in Jungo Miernis, where he had returned the sick monkey Droplog to. Now, unfortunately, his old commander, Larafin, is also in the city. While Dresden was off adventuring, Captain Larafin had been escorting some wagons along with their squad up to the city, and so Dresden's back under the captain's command. Now, Larafin, knowing he'd been through a lot, was going to give him the day off, but Dresden didn't want to look lazy, so he spent the day helping construct a palisade on protecting one segment of the city. And he is absolutely exhausted. Now, one good bit of news. Droplog is still alive. He's doing well. He's recovered. And in his gratitude, he has arranged for Dresden to have his very own private room. It's a crappy little room in one of the town's few inns. There's no services, no special treatment, but at least it's some space for him to get some peace and quiet. So Dresden is his usual grumpy self. He's in his room by himself. He's worried that he's just going to shrivel away, that he's never going to get back to his home plane of Moldav, and he's just going to die a slow death with no recognition, no appreciation of his accomplishments. But he's got his nice private room, big stuffed feathered bed. He's just settled in for an early night. And there's a knock on the door. "Ah, what do you want?" he yells. There was a muffled answer on the other side of the door, but he couldn't make out what the voice said. Grudgingly, he got up and lifted the latch. There was a short woman there, looking him pretty much eye to eye. Her light brown skin and slanted eyes, she's very clearly an Odessan. "Are you Dresden?" Dresden could barely understand her brutal accent. He just nodded. The girl continued, "Droplog send me for here." Suddenly paranoid, he looked out into the hall to make sure nobody was watching. What are you trying to say?" Come on." He invited her roughly into the room. She smiled, nodding her head, yes, and then sat timidly on the edge of the bed. "Now," he asked her, "what do you want?" And again she answered, "Droplog send me for here." Every bone in Dresden's body ached, and he was just in no mood for guessing games. He stood up, grabbed her by the arm, and began to usher her out. No, here for you. She wrestled away from his grasp for just a second and lunged at him. Before he knew it, her tongue was in his mouth, her hand in his pants. He indulged her for a moment, but he just couldn't help himself, but finally he pushed her back. He looked at her as if only now catching on. "You're a whore?" he asked. Dresden knew there were prostitutes around, but he'd never knowingly seen one. "I must make you happy, or they'll hurt me." She was pulling her top off as she spoke. It was barely more than a rag, but it kept her sizable breasts in check. She had no tattoos, brands, piercings, or scars. Those things were marks earned by warriors. Dresden admired her body. She'd been fed well, clearly with the sole intention of maintaining her figure. A few bruises showed, but she looked well treated. Still, he had a queasiness in his gut. A million thoughts sprinted through his head. Warriors were supposed to protect the weak, not take advantage of them. But this girl, she was just a Hessian. She probably didn't even know the gods or their provinces. He realized he had subconsciously reached out to caress her breast and moved his hand back. Just as quickly, she grabbed it and pulled it to her. Please, they will hurt me. Tell me what you know about Lorne, he asked her. What? Do you want me to throw you out the door? He pointed. Now tell me what you know about Lorne. She sat on the bed and seemed to search her mind. He sat next to her, close enough to feel her soft skin. She was a little dusty, like everything on Odessa. Her fingernails held a considerable amount of filth, but dwarves were never big on hygiene, even in the best of times. Realistically, if she was too clean, he might have just had one more reason to send her away. Lorne is the god of building and making. He is great crafter, symbolized by spider in a web. His priests run guilds. Dresden was impressed. He leaned forward and gently kissed her. It was his reward as much as hers. He was pleasantly surprised that she smiled. Okay, tell me about Agamor. Oh yes, I know. She seemed excited. He is Berserker Lord. He is fighter of, he is god of single fights and warriors of glory and honor for the very strong. His militia go first in fights to, she stood pacing, trying to remember. First on the wall is what they always say. She sat back down, but her enthusiasm seemed to drain away. The girl was trembling. What's wrong? He had his hand on her leg. He was glad she'd been educated, but the pressure of such a pretty and available woman was starting to get to him. That's what they say when my village fight them. My village dumb for fighting. They tried to help a bad priest. Then I got sold to Jungos. From what Dresden knew, slavery had always been part of the Hessian ways. In the old days on Moldav, the Howells had kept slaves by the tens of thousands. Half his friends had older relatives who had belonged to the Dog Faces. Even in Patronsburg, there had been people enslaved as punishment or for debts. It was rarer now, but far from unheard of. So you are a slave? He asked. Yes. I make you happy now. She pulled his hand so far up her leg he felt moisture. I like you. I make you very happy. He did not withdraw his hand. As they proceeded to roll around the sheets, he was distracted a bit, realized that he'd never really considered his own opinion of slavery. He supposed their status wasn't much different than that of a prole. Sure, a prole could switch houses, and they had some freedoms, but neither would really ever contribute to the clan. This was probably the best she could hope for. He felt no guilt as he continued his way around the bed. So that almost does it for this chapter. One of the themes through a lot of the stories is going to be how new converts find their way into the empire, how they're treated, what things they have to overcome, what just luck really has for them, whether they end up like the slave girl, or whether they're given the opportunity of, say, the Jungo to be warriors and more or less seamlessly move into the fold of the empire. Contrasted, you have so many of the other Hessians that went to one form of camp or another to be re-educated before actually perhaps getting a chance to become equals, or at least the illusion of equals someday. After a couple of hours, Dresden was almost asleep again. He was vaguely aware that the girl had gotten dressed and was leaving. After he was certain she was gone, he heard another bang on the door. Oh, what the fuck. Muffled voices came from the other side, and once again, he got up to poke his head out and find out what was happening. There was a man standing there in leather armor and holding a parchment in his hand. It said, "Dresden Thane, you are to return to Parnsilia without delay." Dresden looked at the man. What? He was a officer within the militia of Biona, somebody new to Larafin's command. The man just smirked at him. "The caravan's leaving in 2 hours. I suggest that you're with it." So that really does do it for chapter 13. Looks like Dresden's going to get to go back to his home plane. Maybe probably doesn't want to now that he's found a nice little niche, his own place, his own little apartment. He's got some buddies running around, but that's the way things go. As soon as the new warrior gets comfortable, it's time to shake things up again. So I'm glad that you all could join us. Do all the stuff on Facebook. Come visit me on the various platforms. And here in a few days, we're gonna jump into chapter 14, right back onto Moldav and see what's waiting for him there. In the meantime, I'm hoping that you all will have an absolutely wonderful day.